that was interesting. Why did okay? The they said that we're gonna spend the night in the square, right? Initially, why? Like,
Yeah.
well, or where? Like, were they just gonna like sleep in the middle of the street or something, or like on a sidewalk? Like,
Do they need to sleep? They just
oh,
gonna
that's a
hang
good
out and
point.
walk around, act like they're
Oh, that's
milling
deep.
about.
That's deep. That's deep. I never thought of
Or
that.
maybe they just maybe they were just like, yeah, the more we're out in the open, the sooner we get to destroy this place. They're gonna come at us.
Yo, that's crazy.
I don't know. It's something to think about.
Yeah.
Because apparently these dudes attracted some attention walking through town.
Apparently, yeah, because people knew where to find them because they went straight to Lot's house, right?
Yeah.
The men of Sodom surround Lot's house, demanding to defile the angels. That was a trip to me. When you remember the story about the Ephraim Levite and Judges, where his
Yeah, Judges
concubine,
19.
it's like they did the
Yeah.
same thing. They came and knocked on the door, like a mob of people, and they were like, give us the man that's here, and Lot or the guy in Judges responds the same way that Lot did. And I'm wondering, like, what's your take on that? What's your take on this? The response of, well, we have women here, so have them. Do you think it's just like a knee-jerk reaction?
Yeah, it's almost like a futile. I don't agree with Lot's response, nor do I agree with the Levites'
Agreed.
response in
Right.
Judges 19. And I think that was a weird position of desperation that clearly, because just the next couple of verses tells us those girls were engaged to be married to some other dudes.
Right.
So why is he trying to offer them up to the men to do with them as they wish? And I'm like, that's, it sounds like you're confused as well, Lot, in this panic situation. So I don't agree with his decision there. I would never do
Agreed.
that.
Right.
I do think that that was a very beta way to handle that, as opposed to the alpha way would have been to be like, I'm going to be the one to defend my household and my guests inside my household, which is Torah, by the way.
Word.
And you're going to have to go through me to get to them. And then the angels would have stepped in. But regardless, since he didn't handle it that way, the men of the city still viewed it as if he was attempting to protect the people inside of his household by then turning on Lot and saying, oh, so now you're going to act like a judge. Well, we're going to do worse to you than we would have done to those angels or those guests of yours. So I think, why in Judges 19 do the corrupted Benjaminites act in the same regard as these men of Sodom? Why this particular act of bring this man out, not your daughters who had lived there this whole time, but bring these strangers, this man, bring him out so we can violate him. I think it's not as much about attraction as it is dominance.
Wow.
Because this supposedly seems to be the progression, if you will, the escalation of society to this tribalism that rejects all foreigners. Is the moment you see a foreigner, you don't know if he's trying to scout out the land as a spy. You don't know if he's trying to come in and maybe buy real estate and take you over financially. You don't know if you don't know what's going on, but there's this inherent paranoia and fear, and you just want to go and show dominance to him. How do men show dominance to another man? Where you don't want to physically hurt him, you want to shame him, debase him. I mean, this is prison rules. You know what I'm saying? This is all it turns into.
It's still sick logic, though. I can understand wanting to fight somebody to, you know what I'm saying? Like, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? Have intercourse with another dude? Like,
yeah, but that's SRA though, right? That's satanic ritual abuse.
Facts,
that is
facts.
par for the course with Baal worship and all the strange flesh they were going after anyway.
And it was how
mob. They do it.
It was a mob of dude. Like, it was a mob of them that came to Lot's door. It wasn't like just it's what did it say? Like, did it say all the men and boys of the city? Men and boys.
Yeah, men and boys.
Well, I don't. What in the world, man?
Well, that's what I'm suggesting, is that because they're engaging in idolatry, and the idolatry has always been the same. The rituals of idolatry has always been the same.
Facts.
It's this type of abuse, this sexual abuse.
I think Solomon talks about that in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6, where he straight up says that they have mystery sick initiations where they sacrifice their children. They have sex rituals and stuff like that. And he was talking about monarchs and kings and stuff like that, because a lot of his counsel in Wisdom of Solomon is to them. It's a trip, man, because it's so out of the normal for my. I know, right? and it's coming to light for a lot of people who aren't even in our walk, right? But it's just so outside of the realm of reality for me. It's just a trip that people even can go there.
It's interesting that these angels just strike the men with blindness instead of just killing them right there. I mean, they were going to come to kill him anyway. So, so what? It's like now they've struck the men with blindness so that they can't even see to run away from the destruction that's about to happen. As opposed to like, why didn't these angels just drop these men dead at this point right here? And why put them in blindness? It's interesting. It's an interesting, I don't know, man. There's a lot we could probably
unpack,
theorize about that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the question that I was proposing with our Come Let Us Reason Together segment is kind of addressed in this, where the angels
tell understand Lot, why. Yeah, I can understand.
Get your family, get anyone that belongs to you, get them out of the city. And then, which I think is interesting because the amount of people still wouldn't equal 10. So you remember back when Abraham's bargaining and they leave off at 10.
I know it's a trip.
And so we got Lot, his wife, the 2 daughters, and if the 2 soon-to-be son-in-laws would have went with them, that would have only been 6. So it's like he didn't even get up to 10. But the 2 son-in-laws that reject the offer, they think that's a whole nother commentary.
They think he's playing around. They think he's
which is that lack of that flippancy is also a characteristic of wickedness, right? Where everything is nothing. There's no seriousness. Everything's a joke. It's like that that wicked comedy. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's that trolling behavior. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's you try to make a joke at everything. You can't take anything serious because you don't want consequences for actions. And it's interesting though that when he says Lot hesitated, so therefore the angels grabbed them by the hands and took them out of the city. And then once they get out of the city, then he tells Lot, okay, run to the mountains. So to me, and you tell me how you read this, to me, it seems as if they didn't escort Lot, his wife, and the 2 daughters, but they like transported them.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
And the reason why I think about that is why would you walk them out of the city and then stop and say, okay, now run to the mountains? No, you would just keep running with them if you've been running with them out of the city anyway. But if you grab them and angelically, transported them as we see in scripture, right? Like what is it, Philip and Acts, or is it Philip in Acts 7? Either way, but if you just got like I think it's Bel and the Dragon, maybe it's where Habakkuk is transported to Daniel while he was in the lion's den to give him some food, and the angel carries him there. And so I'm just saying it seems as if the angels do something that's a little supernatural here with his family to get them out quick, and then tells them to run. And Lot's trying to say, well, look, man, I can't run to the mountains, but I can go to the city over here. And so I don't know if he's just because of he's not in shape or he's just too old or whatever. I don't know the reasoning, but
I love how it says that because of the Lord's compassion for him. Because this is your translation we're reading from, right? That's
this is the Berean Study Bible.
Oh, Berean Study Bible. That's in a lot of different translations. That word compassion is used. That touches my heart, man. Because even in Lot's irrationality, God still made sure that he was, protected in that situation to the capacity that he was willing to accept it, because we know what the eventuality of his wife was, right? God's not going to force you per se to do anything. But Lot's reasoning here is very interesting to me. As we get closer to the end of the chapter 19, I really don't know what to make of that situation. This is a lot going on during that age, man, where it's just like, I'm like, what in the world were people doing and thinking?
This is why in the notes in the actual text I put these red parentheses around these words. So part of what I try to show people on my channel when we're going into looking at how do we find context, sometimes you have translator insertions, sometimes you have translator assumptions. So the idea is the translator has kind of a lot of power when he gives you a translation, right? Because he's taking the text and trying to figure out what's the sentence saying, and then is he choosing the right word? Because you know how in language words can be placed in various different contexts and work depending on the context, right?
Right.
So he has to understand the context for the right usage of the right type of word, depending on the language he's translating. So here in verse 31, I have on screen here, it says, one day the older daughter said to the younger, and that's why I love the fact it says one day, because I think this is an escalated time far beyond the destruction. I think they've been in this cave for a while, because as it says, he was afraid to actually live in the town of Zoar that got spared, but he settled in the mountains nearby, I'm guessing. So that, to me, it's like, all right, well, you spared the city, but you're not even going to live there. So that's something interesting.
Yeah. Huh.
You know,
that's deep.
But then he's living in this cave out in the mountains because he was afraid to stay in Zoar. And I'm guessing either they knew he survived Sodom and Gomorrah, or that he was somehow responsible, or that they blamed him for it. I don't know. But the men of Zoar definitely weren't kind to him either, because he's afraid to stay there. So now he's living in this cave with his two girls, and they say, as is the custom over all the earth, there's no man in the land to sleep with us. I don't think it's the fact that I used to think this. I used to think, oh, well, they thought all the world was destroyed, so therefore there's no more men on the earth besides their father. But now I don't think that anymore, because the more I look at the text, I realize, oh, they're living in their Zoar is still not destroyed. It's still there.
So
that's
there were
where they
men
were going
there.
to run to.
Right.
Yeah, there's people there. It's even though it's a small town, it's still a town. So they knew there was people, there's children and boys being born, you know? So there was definitely men available to sleep with them, but I think it's that they would not sleep with them.
So what is the custom?
I think,
as is the custom.
So the custom is the Hebrew word derek, and it means a manner of behavior or a conduct. So as the manner of behavior in that area or in that land and that word land is also eretz in the earth, right? So even though the translator put in the word earth here at the end of this sentence, but
it could be land.
It's the same word that is used for the word land earlier in the sentence. So if you were to read it and say, our father is old and there's no man in the land to sleep with us, as is the manner of behavior in all the land,
they might have just been understood. So they might have been just picking up on the customs of the area the locale that they were in. You think? Yeah,
it's either that the men of Zoar had some of the same bad behavior as the men of Sodom and Gomorrah, being that they didn't even want women, or two, these people were treated as outcasts, and they weren't nobody was gonna give their son to these daughters.
Well, that's a paradigm shift right there. That's deep. Yeah,
you know, and that's obviously I'm just doing my best with the text, because none of this makes sense to me, as far as trying to get your dad. And for one, as a man, you know, I know if someone had done something to me the night before,
right?
Like the next morning when you wake up, you know, if you've had conjugal the night before. Let's be real, guys.
And it happened twice. It happened twice, back to back, right? One night, one daughter, and then the daughter went to her sister and was like, "Yo, I did this last night. You do it tonight," type deal. This is why there's some. Okay, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that Lot was so drunk that he, you know, lost.
My biology doesn't work like that, for one.
Facts.
I can't engage in this kind of behavior if I'm that drunk.
That drunk.
Biologically.
No, I feel you.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to explore all options. You know what I'm saying? Because wine was definitely used, so it's not like he was totally sober when it happened. But I think at the highest level of abstraction, if I'm going to take any counsel from this to apply to my life now, because I can't relate to the relations he had with his daughter, but I can see how people can have a lax spirit when it comes to drinking wine in moderation. Time and time again, we're counseled all throughout the Torah that, you know, wine is a mocker. Many men have been destroyed by wine. People do really dumb things when they're drunk. Now, I don't know nobody who's been so drunk that they slept with their, you know, they fathered their grandkids. I don't know anybody like that personally. But
yeah, it to me, it's odd that you know, and this is another point I was going to make. Someone in the chat was talking about what kind of wine did they give, like from the local winery. So where they, you know, wine takes preparation. Is this stuff that they brought? It doesn't seem like they brought anything with them when the angels pulled them out of Sodom and Gomorrah.
That's deep.
So they got provisions from somewhere, right? They're going to the local market for stuff, for food. What's this cave like? Is it next to, you know, how some mountainous areas will have actual farmable land right near the base of the mountain, and there can be caves up on the mountain, and they could have some land below them. I don't know. Again, that's why I think verse 31 is interesting for a shift of time. Like there's time that has passed between the destruction of them escaping and this now where it picks up in verse 31. So we don't know if they were engaging with the people of Zoar nearby to get local provisions, or if he just started his own thing out there and was kind of homesteading out there where he was. We just don't know all that. All I do know is that he clearly is making some bad decisions, with him being willing to get drunk 2 nights in a row. And I'm not trying to be overly harsh for people that are out there that want to have a nice glass of wine. I'm just saying,
right.
There's no, like, to me, that mentality, you're sitting in a cave with your 2 daughters and you're just drinking. That's a different mentality than you're being productive in life and society. You're trying to interact with the people of Zohar. You're trying to, be of sober minded so that you can pray, which is basic fundamental Torah, So like, this is like, to me, this is a different mentality. It's almost as if he's in either a period of mourning or he's got like some strange PTSD.
Or do you think he was
just,
do you think, go ahead. My bad.
I was just saying, basically, he's susceptible to his daughters being like, "Oh, let's get drunk again tonight." Like, it's no big deal.
Do you think that maybe he was like getting to the point where he was senile? Like, do you think he was like Biden in the cave? Do you think he was like that old, like almost having dementia? Because I could see how that could happen.
If that's the way, yeah, I understand that. And if that's the way it is, I'm just amazed that these men can have all this debilitating other parts of their body, yet their genitals still apparently work fine.
Facts, yo.
It's kind of like, man, these dudes are strong.
Oh, snap. Yo, man.
Again, like I said, I don't know what kind of wine he's drinking, but
yeah,
it's not normal for a person to get so drunk that you don't know who's messing with you physically and still have to be able to perform in that manner.
It's still, and it's not normal for daughters to be even willing to be gosh, you can tell I'm still thawing off. I'm normally asleep, but the fact that his daughters were even willing to go that far, like, to me, is just something wasn't right with his daughters. I know that they're talking about the customs and stuff like that, but still, I understand that, polygyny at that time was a normal practice. So when you see a man's wife offer, her maid servant or something like that, that's something I can say, well, it's not anything I can relate to today, but like, I can understand how that happened. But when it's like you're dealing with people's kids and stuff, and the child, because it was his children were the ones that initiated this whole situation.
I know. And here's the thing, that the whole purpose of his children even having this thought to begin with, I can only guess that mindset came from their exposure to being in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and around those people with what we know of the satanic rituals and the occults and how they do interfamily sexual activity at rituals even. With that understanding, I can see where they would be like, well, hey, this is an option, right? We need kids. We're trying to propagate. We need people to help us farm, and we need to rebuild our own clan. So they're just looking at impure utility and ignoring the morality of being that it's their own father. And it's just, all of it obviously is bad decisions made in a bad situation. So
real quick before we go to chapter 20, another thing that I wanted to touch on was the whole the Lord rained fire from the Lord text. That's another one Trinitarians love. Have you had any dialogue with Trinitarians or any debates where they use that text to try to establish the idea that God is a Trinity? 1924.
Not a lot of Trinity, not I should say this, Trinity believers from traditional Christian churches, no. Trinity believers from Torah observant communities, yes, they'll use this text and try to
I didn't know that there were Torah observant Trinitarians.
Yeah, it's right. Amazing, right? But yes, there's lots. So this is what they'll try to say is that, oh, this was, Yahweh was the angel there. Or excuse me. They'll try to, I've heard them try to argue that the son of Yahweh, who we know later is Yeshua, this is a pre-incarnate appearance of him. And then he's raining the sulfur and fire down out of heaven from his father, Yahweh.
Right. Right. I've heard that.
I personally, I think that, personally, this is simply the way that Hebrew writing happens all the time, where they repeat stuff and they expound.
First
I
Kings
don't know what,
12:21. Yeah, it happens a
yeah,
lot actually in scripture, but there's a
yeah,
couple
I
that I
don't
go to. Go ahead.
for sure. And do you know the actual literary term that it's named when they use this type of device?
I just know it's prose. I know it's Hebraic prose, but
Mhm.
I don't know if it's like I don't know what the name is.
Yeah. So then you're familiar with what I'm talking about. It's just a way of them writing. They do this all the time, where they'll
Right.
say, "Oh, and Yahweh did this because it was from Yahweh."
Hmm.
And you're like, "All right,
They do it with Lamech. They do it with Rehoboam. They do it with people who aren't
yeah,
God, right? Like, so
yeah." Yeah, that's my understanding of it. It's pretty simple. It's just part of understanding idioms and figures of speech within the consistency of the scriptures.